distracted mind is like a cloudy mirror. It reflects nothing clearly. We live in a time where the mind is constantly pulled in different directions. Thoughts of the past, worries of the future, and distractions of the present moment. But clarity begins when the mind stops chasing. Just as a lake becomes still when the wind settles, the mind becomes clear when we return to the present moment. But the question is, how do we return? You do not need to climb a mountain or sit in silence for days. You simply need to notice where you are, right now. This moment, take a breath. Feel the air entering your body. Hear the sounds around you. This is life unfolding. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but now. Clearing your head does not mean having no thoughts. It means not getting entangled by them. Let the thoughts pass like clouds. Do not hold on. Do not push away. Simply observe. There is great strength in stillness, and there is great peace in presence. When you train your mind to stay here, not only do you see more clearly, but your actions become deliberate. Your words gain weight. Your decisions become rooted in wisdom. So do not rush. Do not dwell. Be here. Breathe. Return again and again. This is the path. A distracted mind is like muddy water, stirred by every breeze, disturbed by every falling leaf. In such a state, it becomes impossible to see clearly beneath the surface. The reflections are distorted. The depth is hidden. The truth is present, but not visible. This is how most of us live, constantly reacting, constantly pulled by noise, messages, memories, worries, and cravings. We move from one moment to the next not with intention, but by impulse, unaware that our vision, mental, emotional, even spiritual, is clouded by the noise we never stop to quiet. When the mind is scattered, even simple things become complicated. A conversation is misinterpreted. A decision is rushed. A situation is judged prematurely. Just like a dirty lens can blur a beautiful landscape, the lens of the mind, when fogged by distraction, twists reality. What you perceive is no longer what is. It is a version tainted by assumption, emotion, and mental clutter. In this way, suffering often doesn't come from the situation itself, but from our misperception of it. A distracted mind turns molehills into mountains, silence into threat, and uncertainty into fear. Distraction is not always loud or aggressive. Sometimes it is subtle, creeping into the edges of our awareness. It can be the silent tug of an unfinished task, a background worry that hums while we smile and talk. It may look like productivity on the surface, but underneath, it is a mind divided, and when the mind is divided, presence is lost. You are here, but not really. You hear, but do not listen. You see, but you do not observe. Slowly, we become disconnected from the very life we are trying to live, always chasing something just ahead or just behind. The irony is that distraction feeds itself. The more we divide our attention, the more uncomfortable stillness becomes. We begin to fear silence, avoid solitude, and fill every space with activity. But this is like pouring more water into a glass that's already overflowing. It does not lead to peace. It leads to more chaos. The real clarity we seek is not found by adding more, but by removing what no longer serves the mind. To see clearly, we must allow the water to settle. Only then does the truth at the bottom become visible. True perception requires space, mental space, emotional space, inner silence. Not silence as in absence of sound, but a stillness that is undisturbed by the endless chatter of thought. This space does not come naturally in a world full of distractions. It must be cultivated with awareness and discipline. But once created, it becomes a sanctuary within yourself, where things are seen as they are, not as your anxiety paints them, not as your fear distorts them, not as your ego interprets them. Only then can you respond, not react. Only then can you act from clarity, not confusion. Time is a concept that exists in the mind. The past is memory. The future is imagination. Both are mental projections, not places you can stand, not realities you can touch. Yet, most people spend their lives caught between these two illusions, rarely setting foot in the only place where life truly unfolds, the present. This moment, right now, as you are breathing, reading, listening, is the only doorway into actual experience. Everything else is a story about what was or what might be. But the breath you feel in your lungs, the sounds around you, the sensation of being alive, these do not exist in the past or future. They exist only here. We often believe that the past defines us, that our history shapes our identity, and to some extent it does. But holding on too tightly to what was, mistakes, victories, regrets, even joys, can trap us in a narrative that no longer serves the life unfolding now. Likewise, the future draws our attention with its promises, its fears, and its endless uncertainties. We try to predict, control, and prepare for it, believing that once everything is figured out, we can finally live. But that moment of complete readiness never comes. The future, like the horizon, keeps moving as you walk toward it. The mind, trained by habit, tends to wander. It rewinds to replay old conversations, regrets missed opportunities, or it fast forwards to imagine outcomes, create plans, or anticipate problems. And in doing so, it skips over the richness of the now. Have you ever arrived at your destination without remembering the journey? Have you ever eaten a meal without really tasting it? These are moments stolen by a wandering mind, by a consciousness that has drifted away from where life is actually taking place. We live in our heads, not in our bodies, not in the world. The present moment is simple, but not always easy to access, because it demands your full attention. It requires you to put down your mental baggage, even if only for a breath. It asks you to feel what is here, without judgment, without resistance, without distraction. That level of presence can be uncomfortable at first. It reveals things we often avoid: the tension in the body, the unsettled emotions, the quiet longing. But it also reveals the beauty we constantly overlook, the subtle details of nature, the warmth in a kind gesture, the silence between sounds. The present contains everything: joy, sorrow, clarity, confusion, all woven into the fabric of now. Living in the present is not about ignoring the past or abandoning the future. It is about recognizing their proper place. Memory can guide and planning can prepare, but only presence allows us to live. It is in the present that we listen deeply, speak truthfully, and act wisely. It is only here that growth occurs, that healing begins, that connection happens. The rest is smoke. Only this moment is solid ground, and yet most people overlook it while chasing shadows of time. But presence is not something you find. It is something you return to, again and again, with awareness. Before stillness can arise, awareness must awaken. You cannot calm what you do not notice. You cannot guide a mind you are not observing. Most people believe stillness is something they must force, something to strive for by shutting out the world or silencing every thought. But true stillness does not come through resistance. It comes through recognition. It begins the moment you become aware of what is happening inside you, the racing thoughts, the tightness in the body, the restless energy. The moment you see these things clearly, without trying to fix or flee, a space opens up. That space is the beginning of stillness. Awareness is not effortful. It is not about controlling the mind or battling with distractions. It is more like turning on a light in a dark room. The furniture was always there, the thoughts, the emotions, the sensations, but now you can see. This seeing, this simple act of observation creates distance. Instead of being trapped in the storm, you become the sky that watches it. Thoughts may still come. Emotions may still rise, but your relationship to them changes. You are no longer entangled. You are present with them, not lost inside them. This shift, subtle yet profound, is where inner stillness begins to take root. Often, we think of stillness as the absence of movement or noise. But that is only the surface. True stillness is not dependent on external silence. It can exist even in chaos. A person may sit in a quiet room and still be noisy inside, filled with agitation, resistance, or mental chatter. Meanwhile, someone else may be surrounded by sound yet remain undisturbed because they have cultivated awareness. This awareness is not reactive. It sees, accepts, and allows. It does not demand peace from the outside. It brings peace to the inside. This is the power of awareness. It transforms our inner climate regardless of outer conditions. Awareness is not limited to meditation or special practices. It can be brought into the simplest acts: walking, eating, breathing, listening. To feel your foot touching the ground, to taste your food without distraction, to listen without preparing your response. These are small doorways into awareness. And with awareness, stillness follows, not as something you create, but as something that naturally arises when you are fully here. It is not found through force, but through attention. The more present you become with life as it is, the more the restless mind begins to soften and the body begins to settle. This is not to say that awareness makes everything easy or quiet. Sometimes awareness reveals what we have long avoided. It shines light on discomfort, unresolved tension, or deep emotional patterns. But even this is part of stillness, not the absence of disturbance, but the clarity to face it without fear. When you remain aware in the midst of discomfort, you begin to realize that stillness is not a fragile state that must be protected. It is a resilient state that can hold everything. Like a mountain unmoved by the weather, awareness anchors you in the present. And from this place, stillness grows. There is a common misunderstanding in the journey toward inner peace, that a quiet mind means a mind with no thoughts. People sit down to meditate or attempt to be present and quickly become frustrated when thoughts arise. I'm doing it wrong, they think. But this belief itself is the first trap. Thoughts are not the enemy. They are simply mental events like clouds passing through the sky. They come, they go. They change shape. Sometimes they're heavy and stormy. Other times they're light and passing. But the sky, the awareness behind them, remains untouched. Clearing your head is not the absence of thought. It is the absence of attachment to thought. When a thought arises, be it a memory, a worry, a judgment, it is not the thought that disturbs your peace, but your relationship to it. If you chase it, argue with it, or try to suppress it, you give it power. You become tangled in it, like stepping into a river's current. The more you fight it, the more it pulls you in. But if you simply notice it, acknowledge it as a temporary movement of the mind, and let it pass without resistance, its grip weakens. The thought may still be there, but you are no longer inside of it. You are watching from the riverbank, not drowning in the flow. This practice of non-attachment is subtle. It does not mean indifference or denial. It means creating space between you and your mental noise. That space is awareness. And in that space, thoughts lose their urgency. You begin to see that not every thought needs a response. Not every mental image needs to be followed. Not every worry is worthy of your energy. The mind can continue its movements in the background, like a breeze through the trees, but you remain rooted, present, clear. This is what it truly means to clear your head. Not that nothing arises, but that nothing sticks. Sometimes strong thoughts will come, loud, emotional, persistent. The habit of following them is deeply ingrained. The mind has been conditioned for years, perhaps decades, to run towards stimulation or away from discomfort. But the practice is not about perfection. It's about noticing, again and again. Even if the mind wanders 100 times, the moment you realize it and gently return, you strengthen your clarity. Each return is a step deeper into presence. Each act of letting go, no matter how small, is a breath of fresh air for the mind. And so, clearing your head becomes less of a struggle and more of a softening. You don't need to control the mind like a strict master over a restless student. You simply observe with patience, with compassion, with openness. You begin to realize that the mind doesn't need to be silenced. It needs to be understood. When you stop feeding the thoughts with fear or urgency, they naturally quiet down. That is the number R, the ripples fading on the surface of a pond. The mind begins to settle, not because you forced it, but because you stopped stirring it. And in that stillness, something deeper emerges. Not silence, but spaciousness. The nature of the mind is to think. Just as the heart beats and the lungs breathe, the mind produces thoughts. They rise without asking, float through the landscape of consciousness, and dissolve, often before we even notice. Trying to stop thoughts is like trying to stop the wind. The more you grasp at them, the more restless they become. And yet, many people believe that mental peace is found by erasing all thinking, by holding the mind still like a stone. But this approach is rooted in misunderstanding. True clarity does not come from suppression. It comes from observation. When you observe thoughts the way you observe clouds in the sky, you begin to understand their impermanent nature. Some clouds are soft, thin, and almost invisible. Others are dark, heavy, and seem to block out all light. Thoughts behave the same way. A gentle memory may pass like a wisp of white across a blue sky, while an anxious thought may loom like a storm. But the sky is not afraid of clouds. It holds space for them all, and the sky never chases them, never tries to capture or hold them. In the same way, your awareness, the part of you that sees, that knows, can remain open, undisturbed by the ever-changing forms of your thoughts. To observe without chasing means to see clearly without becoming identified. There is a deep difference between thinking and becoming lost in thought. One is a tool, the other is a trap. When you chase a thought, follow it, feed it, attach a story to it. You step into its world and forget your own. A single thought of fear can become a scenario, then a belief, then a sense of dread, all because you ran after it instead of watching it pass. But when you remain as the witness, the thought comes and goes. It may speak, but it doesn't command. It may tug at your attention, but it doesn't carry you away. This is not passivity. It is power, the power of restraint, of inner discipline, of still presence. Chasing thoughts is a habit formed over years of unconscious living. We are taught to analyze, to fix, to react. The moment something appears in the mind, we think it must be true. It must be addressed. It must be followed to its end. But this is not wisdom. This is compulsion. And compulsion creates suffering. The practice is to sit and watch, to let a thought appear without grabbing hold. You may label it worry, memory, judgment, and then allow it to float by. Like watching clouds move across a wide, open sky, this act of gentle naming and releasing trains the mind to stay centered. The more you practice this art of watching without chasing, the more you begin to see the mind's patterns. You notice the repetitive loops, the predictable worries, the familiar stories. They are no longer mysterious forces, just habitual clouds. And over time, you become less impressed by them, less afraid of them, less controlled by them. You begin to trust the sky more than the clouds. You recognize that awareness is your true home, not the contents of your mind, but the space in which they appear and disappear. And with this realization, you gain something far more valuable than silence. You gain freedom. In life, there is a natural tendency to seek peace by trying to control external circumstances. We want the world to align with our desires, to remove obstacles, avoid discomfort, and create ideal conditions. Yet, the world is vast and unpredictable, shaped by countless forces beyond our command. Trying to master the external environment is like trying to catch the wind with your hands. It slips through every grasp. This effort often leads to frustration and exhaustion because peace cannot be manufactured by changing what lies outside of us. It is found in the mastery of what lies within, our own attention. Attention is the gatekeeper of experience. What you choose to focus on shapes your reality more deeply than the events themselves. Two people may face the same challenge, one overwhelmed by anxiety and despair, the other calm and steady. That is the number R. The difference lies not in the situation, but in where their minds dwell. Attention, like a powerful lantern, can illuminate and clarify, or it can scatter and blind. To master attention is to cultivate the ability to direct this inner light skillfully, choosing where to rest it and when to withdraw it. This mastery is the root of genuine peace, a peace independent of outer chaos. This mastery begins with awareness, watching where the mind naturally drifts, what it fixates on, and what stories it tells itself. Most minds habitually latch onto problems, fears, or distractions without realizing the choice they have. With practice, you learn that attention is not a passive process, but a dynamic one that can be trained like a muscle. You can decide to return your focus to what supports calmness and clarity, the breath, the body, the present moment. Through this deliberate practice, you step out of automatic reactions and into conscious response. In this space, peace is born. Peace is not the absence of conflict or difficulty. It is the presence of centered attention amid whatever arises. When you master your attention, external disturbances lose their power to unbalance you. The storm can rage outside, but your mind remains anchored like a deep-rooted tree. You are not a victim of circumstance, but a guardian of your own awareness. This is a profound freedom, one that allows you to engage with life fully without being swept away by every emotional gust or mental whirl. It is the calm in the eye of the hurricane. Mastering attention is not about rigid control or denial of what is difficult. It is an invitation to be deeply present with your experience, holding it with steadiness and openness. Sometimes attention may rest on pain or discomfort, not to avoid it, but to understand it clearly. This focused presence transforms turmoil into insight and restlessness into clarity. The more you cultivate this skill, the more peace becomes your natural state, not dependent on the world outside, but rooted firmly in the mastery of your own mind. When you are truly present, your ability to make choices shifts profoundly. Presence anchors you in reality, not the distorted reality of fears, regrets, or fantasies, but the clear, immediate moment in front of you. In this clarity, the mind is no longer clouded by assumptions or distractions. Instead, it perceives the situation as it truly is, and with this perception comes the power to choose consciously. Without presence, choices are often made from automatic patterns or emotional reactions, but presence breaks this cycle, allowing for freedom in decision. Presence sharpens your awareness of consequences. When distracted or lost in thought, it is easy to act impulsively without considering how your actions ripple outward. But presence slows this process, opening a space to pause, reflect, and weigh options. In this moment of calm and clarity, you can see not just immediate gratification or avoidance of discomfort, but the long-term effects of your decisions on yourself and others. Presence turns choice from a reactive gamble into a mindful act of responsibility. Being present also heightens your sensitivity to the subtle nuances of each situation. The unspoken feelings of others, the shifting dynamics, the invisible threads connecting cause and effect. This sensitivity brings wisdom. It invites you to act with compassion and integrity, not from ego or habit. When you are fully here, your choices resonate more deeply with your values and your true nature. You no longer react out of fear or habit, but respond with authenticity and insight. Moreover, presence empowers you to face uncertainty with courage. Life rarely offers perfect clarity or guarantees. When the mind is distracted or caught in anxiety about the future, it often avoids difficult choices or freezes in indecision. But presence grounds you in the moment, giving you access to the inner strength needed to face what is unknown. It is from this groundedness that courageous, wise decisions arise, even amid uncertainty and complexity. Presence also opens you to creativity and possibility. When the mind is caught up in distractions, it tends to recycle old patterns and predictable solutions. But when fully present, your awareness expands beyond habitual thinking. You become receptive to new ideas, fresh perspectives, and innovative paths. This expanded awareness allows you to choose not only what is easiest or familiar, but what is most aligned with growth and deeper meaning. In this way, presence becomes a gateway to empowered, transformative choice. The mind, when burdened by clutter, becomes like a crowded room filled with noise and confusion. Thoughts, worries, unresolved emotions, and distractions stack upon one another, pressing inward and leaving little room for clarity or calm. This mental clutter does not only obscure perception, it creates a dense fog that dims the light of understanding and peace. Letting go of this clutter is not a mere act of willpower, but a deliberate practice of simplifying the inner landscape, creating a space where truth can reveal itself undistorted and pure. Mental clutter often arises from attachments to ideas, outcomes, fears, and past regrets. These attachments bind the mind in repetitive cycles, like leaves caught in an eddy of a river, endlessly swirling but going nowhere. The practice of letting go invites you to loosen these bonds, not by force, but by gentle release. It requires a turning inward, an honest witnessing of what occupies the mind, and a willingness to free yourself from that which no longer serves your clarity or peace. This is not always easy, for the mind may resist, fearing emptiness or loss. Yet, in that release, there is a profound opening. Creating space in the mind is like clearing a window smudged with dust. When the clutter is removed, light floods in, revealing colors and shapes that were always there but unseen. This newfound clarity allows you to see situations, relationships, and even your own nature with fresh eyes. It becomes easier to discern what truly matters from what is noise. This space is not empty, but pregnant with possibility, a calm field from which wisdom and peace naturally arise. The simplicity born from letting go is itself a form of richness, a fertile ground for genuine insight. Letting go also fosters presence. When the mind is crowded, it struggles to remain in the now, constantly pulled backward or forward by thoughts and distractions. But as you release mental clutter, the mind settles and presence deepens. This presence is like a still pond reflecting the sky without distortion. It allows you to engage with life directly, without the interference of unnecessary mental noise. Presence born from letting go enhances your ability to respond wisely and compassionately to whatever arises, unburdened by the weight of past or future. Finally, this process is ongoing. Mental clutter may return as it is part of the natural flow of the mind. The practice is to return again and again to the act of letting go, to create and maintain space. Each time you do, the space becomes more familiar and peace more accessible. This is a gradual unfolding, a deepening relationship with simplicity and clarity. The more you cultivate this space within, the more your experience of life shifts from one of overwhelm and confusion to one of calm and ease. And within this calm, the true nature of your mind begins to shine.